Hello everyone, this is Monette, and Ornella and I and the rest of the Arigato training team would like to welcome you all once again to Arigato International's online course on monitor and evaluation of ethics education programs. I'll be doing the first part of this lecture, while Ornella will present the second part. We are now on week 2, but there's still time for those who are just gathering their bearings or just joining us now to catch up with the materials in week 1 on this online platform. This is week 2, monitoring and evaluation tools and methods. This session aims to introduce you to the main M&E approaches and stages, and how they influence programs' outcomes. It also aims to introduce you to the main tools and methods used to run an M&E process. In this sense, this session will cover an introduction to 3 main approaches to M&E. It will also take you through what an M&E cycle means and its different stages. Finally, we will introduce you to the main qualitative and quantitative M&E tools available. There are several approaches to M&E. However, the 3 most common M&E frameworks used are the following: conceptual frameworks, results frameworks, and logic frameworks. All of them look at programs' goals and results, but they use different focus to address them. Let's see what they are about and how they contribute to programs' outcomes and impact. The first is conceptual framework. The conceptual frameworks basically look at the relationships between all possible factors that may influence programs' results. They are diagrams that identify and illustrate relationships among relevant organizational, individual, and other factors that may influence a program and the successful achievement of goals and objectives. A good example to understand a conceptual framework is the theory of change approach. The theory of change reflects the underlying process and pathways through which the hope for change, whether in knowledge, behavior, attitudes, or practices, at an individual, institutional, community, or other level, is expected to occur. As you can see in the diagram on the right, the expected change is addressed through all possible scenarios, variables, and assumptions that may influence it. It focuses on the process of change by looking at how change happens and why it happens. In this sense, conceptual frameworks help determine which factors will influence the program and outline how each of these factors, including cultural, economic, and socio-political, might relate to and affect the outcomes. They do not form the basis for monitoring and evaluation activities, but can be useful when defining the target areas of the program and help explaining program results. The second approach we will examine is results framework. Results frameworks, sometimes called strategic frameworks, illustrate the direct relationships between the intermediate results of activities all the way to the overall objectives and goals. In other words, they analyze the relationship between programs' objectives and outline how each of the outputs and outcomes relates to and facilitates the achievement of each objective, and how objectives relate to each other and the ultimate goal. The picture you see in this slide helps to understand the focus of results frameworks. You can think this approach horizontally. As we explained in our first webinar, M&E comprises key elements to consider: inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact or overall goal. Inputs can be referred to as the financial, human, and material resources used for development intervention, while activities could be the actions taken to which inputs are mobilized to produce specific outputs. Outputs, on the other hand, are the products, capital goods and services that result from development interventions, while outcomes are the short-term and medium-term effects of an intervention's outputs, or it is a change in development conditions. And finally, impact is the actual or intended changes in human development as measured by people's well-being, improvement in people's lives. Inputs and activities are considered within the category of resources, whereas outputs, outcomes, and impact are considered within the category of results. Whilst the resources play a key role in the planning, the results play a key role in the implementation. While the resources address the how of the objectives, the results address the why of the objectives. Unlike conceptual frameworks, results frameworks do not take into consideration all the factors influencing the impact. It rather focuses on the objective level and the direct relationships between the results of the activities and the ultimate goals of the program. Finally, the third approach we are going to examine is a logical framework. Logical frameworks are presented as diagrams connecting program inputs to processes, outputs, outcomes, and impact as they relate to specific problem or situation. They show what resources the program will need to accomplish its goals, what the program will do, and what it hopes to achieve, emphasizing links between these aspects. A key element of logical frameworks is that a series of if-then relationships are the ones that connect the components of the model, and it is often read vertically from a bottom-up perspective. For example, look at the picture on the right and note that activities are in the bottom of the diagram. This would be what we called in the webinar the stone that is dropped into the water, if you remember as described by Ornella, followed by outputs, which are the splash, then outcomes, that are the ripples. And finally, on top we have the goal, that is the wave. In this sense, the logic of the if-then works like the arrows in the diagram. If resources are available to the program, then program activities can be implemented. If program activities are implemented successfully, then certain outputs and outcomes can be expected. The if-then used in logical frameworks is called assumptions and comprise the external factors that are not under control of the program and yet influence the success of the process. Unlike conceptual frameworks, logical frameworks do not take into consideration all the factors influencing the results. Unlike results frameworks, it does not only focus on objectives. It rather focuses on all stages of the program, looking at the relationships between inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact with respect to the overall goal of the program. Now we are going to explore the different stages of monitoring evaluation. The four stages of M&E, planning, monitoring, evaluation, and using the findings are represented as a continuous cycle. The first phase of the M&E cycle is planning. Planning is a key stage in the cycle, for here we start to think about why do we want to do it and for whom? What will we monitor and evaluate? How will we do it? Who will do it? And do we have the right skills? When will we do it? What resources will we need, including outside support? What will we do with the information we get? Organizations themselves and their stakeholders will usually want to find out how the organization or project is meeting its planned aims and activities. This needs to be clearly stated in the early stages of planning. Defining aims and objectives will help you agree on planned activities. Drawing up a monitor and evaluation plan will help you think about how it will carry out monitor and evaluation over a certain period or the entire lifetime of a program, which in your case is the ethics education program. The second stage of the cycle is monitoring. Here we think about what and how to monitor or how to collect monitoring information. All organizations keep records and notes and discuss what they are doing. This simple checking becomes monitoring when information is collected routinely and systematically against a plan. The third phase of the monitor and evaluation cycle is evaluation, which can be done internally and be called self-evaluation, and this can also be done externally. Monitoring information may be reported on a quarterly or even a monthly basis. Evaluation, which is, which is taking stock and making judgments, is likely to be carried out less frequently. The fourth phase of the monitor and evaluation cycle is using the findings, or reviewing and learning. It is what makes the time invested worthwhile. In this final stage, organizations make use of the findings to feed back into and guide the management of the organization. They make use of the findings to demonstrate progress and results, tell others what they have learned, and influence policy change. This stage comprises analyzing the information, presenting findings, and learning from evaluation. Now we are going to explore the different stages of monitoring and evaluation. The four stages of M&E, planning, monitoring, evaluation, and using the findings, are represented as a continuous cycle. The first phase of the M&E cycle is planning. Planning is a key stage in the cycle, for here we start to think about the following. Why do you want to do this, and for whom? What will we monitor and evaluate? How will we do it? Who will do it? And do we have the right skills? When will we do it? What resources will we need, including outside support? What will we do with the information we get? Organizations themselves and their stakeholders will usually want to find out how the organization or the project is meeting its planned aims and objectives. This needs to be clearly stated in the early stages of planning. Defining aims and objectives will help you agree on planned outcomes. Drawing up a monitoring and evaluation plan will help you think about how it will carry out monitoring and evaluation over a certain period or the entire lifetime of a program, which in your case is the ethics education program. The second stage of the cycle is monitoring. Here we think about what and how to monitor, or how to collect monitoring information. All organizations keep records and notes and discuss what they are doing. This simple checking becomes monitoring when information is collected routinely and systematically against a plan. The third phase of the monitor and evaluation cycle is evaluation, which can be done internally and can be called self-evaluation, and this can also be done externally. Monitoring information may be reported on a quarterly or even a monthly basis. While evaluation, which is taking stock and making judgments, is likely to be carried out less frequently. The fourth phase of the cycle is using the findings, or reviewing and learning. It is what makes the time invested worthwhile. In this final stage, organizations make use of the findings to feed back into and guide the management of the organization. It makes use of the findings to demonstrate progress and results, and tell others about what they have learned, and influence policy change. This stage comprises analyzing the information, presenting findings, and learning from evaluation. Another way of looking at the M&E data cycle is through these 6 stages. First is identification, which is the selection of the particular data required to achieve the intended purpose of M&E. Within the conventional approaches to M&E, this frequently entails defining indicators that are tracked throughout the life of the project. Second is capture of the identified data. This may involve a range of formal and informal methods of inquiry and various stakeholders. Third is analysis of raw, captured data in order to draw out meaningful features and trends. Unless data are subject to some form of analysis, their capture represents a waste of time and resources. Fourth is dissemination of the M&E findings or analyzed data by various mechanisms and protocols to the stakeholders. It is particularly important that information is relevant to the recipients and is received in a timely and accessible manner. The concept of feedback of analysis is an important but frequently overlooked part of dissemination. Fifth is use of the M&E findings by the various stakeholders. Utilization is embodied in the broad purpose of M&E to promote learning and accountability. If the use for the data is not known from the outset, it is possible that they will remain unused, which would be a waste of organizational effort and resources. And finally, sixth, assessment and reflection about whether or not the data identified in the first stage, having been put to use, have demonstrably contributed to improve organizational learning and accountability. This final stage of the M&E data cycle may be considered meta M&E or M&E of the M&E system. The concept of the cycle to represent the different stages centers on the notion that lessons learned through M&E are fed back into project design, thereby driving an iterative process of learning and improvement, both within the life of a given project and beyond the life of a given project or program. At the end of the day, we would like to find out whether our Learning to Live Together program has actually had significant impact on facilitators and children, and to some degree had an influence on their communities. From there, we learn how we can enhance the impact, sustainability, and quality of the implementation of the Learning to Live Together program. We then have to highlight that M&E should not be considered a stand-alone activity. It should rather be thought of as a set of linked tasks that are undertaken from the start to the end and beyond of a project or program.